Katie Benner, I'm going to read some more from the piece, but first, your reaction to seeing these contemporaneous notes from these officials that you covered and wrote about at the time, to now see in their own words what they were writing down as Trump gave them direction. Your thoughts?
You know, I had two immediate responses. One is I was really struck by how similar this conversation was to the conversation that Trump had with the president of Ukraine when he was asking him to announce an investigation to Hunter Biden in order to undermine Biden's campaign during the summer. You know, that he didn't necessarily want the investigations conducted. He just wanted them announced, according to Gordon Sondland's testimony during the first impeachment. Very similarly, he understood that an official statement from any entity with any sort of gravitas, the Justice Department, the president of Ukraine, would carry with it a message so disruptive that would really hurt his opponent. So that, you know, immediately jumped out to me. And then two, I was struck by how much insight, to your point, we have into conversations between a president and his cabinet. As you well know, the Justice Department never wants to release that information. There's always the specter of future administrations reaching back in time and revealing sensitive conversations that could hold people up to scrutiny that no executive branch wants. The Justice Department has told Congress and others that they're doing this because of very special circumstances, because of the context of the investigations. They look at whether or not the president was really trying to subvert the democratic process, but this is so unusual.
Well, and the other thing that's so remarkable is you've got Kevin McCarthy's caucus not just obstructing an accountability for a president who put all their lives in danger and their one-time colleague Mike Pence's life in danger and his family's, but they're now smearing the witnesses of the Select Committee investigating January 6th. And other than sort of their political depravity, I do sometimes wonder what's behind it. In Donald Trump's mind, his coup accomplices, as communicated to Acting Attorney General Rosen and Richard Donahue, were Jim Jordan, Ron Johnson, and Mr. Perry. Does this put new scrutiny on them, Katie?
You know, it certainly does give people reason to scrutinize Congress and whether or not lawmakers were working with the White House in ways that would be considered highly improper. But I do need to point out that in terms of Jordan's offices and Johnson's office, they have both put out statements denying any knowledge of this. They say they were never, ever involved in any attempts to get the Justice Department to subvert the results of the election. They've been really clear on this. We've not heard from Congressman Perry's office. I will remind everybody that Congressman Perry was working closely with an official inside the Justice Department, Jeff Clark, in order to get the department through back channels to announce investigations into voter fraud that all other officials had deemed completely invalid after investigating them themselves. So, you know, the Congressman Perry was certainly involved, at least with Mr. Clark, in his efforts to make some sort of announcement in Georgia that would have impacted the results of the election.
Harry Litman, I want to read more from Katie's reporting on these notes, but I want your first reaction to just seeing, you know, the other echo to the Zelensky call was the Comey meeting, see to it to let Flynn go. There was never a moment where the President of the United States operated as though his Justice Department and FBI were there to protect the country. They were always, in everything that's been released that we have seen, that's been reported on, there to protect him.
And so that's an unvarying through line. But I really like Katie's point of the analogy to Ukraine here. It is Trump's MO. First, the people are talking, and then the sort of any port in a storm. Donahue, he's the acting deputy attorney general here, but that's not a high official. Jeffrey Clark, who in about a week will be saying, maybe I'm going to be the new attorney general, was the one through Perry that Trump now turns to make this happen. And by the way, it couldn't have been more flagrantly improper. The exact thing the Department of Justice never can do is simply announce something is corrupt without taking action. They must file a lawsuit based on evidence. There was nothing here, probably no lawsuit to bring. So it's completely based on a misunderstanding. But again, just give me that talking point and I'll get my folks to go with it. And who are the folks? This is the first fruit of what's going to be a very large harvest from the Department of Justice opinion 2 days ago saying there's no executive privilege. They are now going to call to testify Richard Donahue, who wants to have a future in this town. He's not a Trump crazy, even though he's very conservative, to testify. Even for him, it was too hot to write down. He just put congressional colleagues. Question one, from someone like Raskin is going to be, who exactly is it? And he has no basis for not answering. The executive privilege cloak has been taken away. So this is going to be amplified, and there's a lot more where this came from.
Harry, Katie, let me add to our conversation my friend, NBC News and MSNBC national affairs analyst John Heilemann. He's also the host and executive producer of Showtime's The Circus, which was just nominated for an Emmy, as well as the host of the Hell and High Water podcast.
We've just lost sound. I've just lost sound, producers.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, John.
Yes.
Okay, because I can hear you.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay, so John, when you read through the reporting here and you hear Harry's analysis and the parallels to Zelensky, your reaction?
My reaction is that this is the 1,237,000th instance of shocking but not surprising, from our time together, Nicole, talking about Donald Trump over the last 4+ years. I mean, from any other president in any other circumstance, we would all be having coronaries over this. And yet from Donald Trump, of course, this was the case. And of course, if you think about the reporting that we've had of late related to Trump and Bill Barr, I don't know how many weeks ago it was that we had the news broken about the last exchanges between Trump and Barr. We know that this is, what Trump was doing from November 7th onward. Frustrated over the fact that Bill Barr wouldn't do what he wanted him to do. Now he's in this situation where, of course, he's reaching out to what he thinks now are more pliable lackeys in the Justice Department, asking them to confirm his version of events. And, of course, also the last thing in the world, to Harry's point, the last thing in the world he wants is for the Justice Department to actually, of course, he would love them to file a lawsuit, but he does not want them to follow form. He does not want them to follow norms or precedent. What he wants is that phrase in there, which is just leave it to me and my colleagues and my enablers and my allies in Congress, is the way that Trump looked at everything with respect to the rule of law. Don't worry about the rule of law. Don't worry about precedent. Don't worry about norms. Don't worry about what the Justice Department has ever done in the past. Just leave it to me. Just leave it to me could be the epitaph for Donald Trump's presidency. And so, I am, of course, stunned that these things took place, and yet utterly unsurprised. This is a perfect, like so many things, perfect encapsulation of how Donald Trump thought about his whole presidency, but particularly in this moment of great desperation that we're learning more and more about this crucial period leading up to the insurrection.